Hello and welcome to our 7 sentence story workshop. I am glad that you are joining me on the replay. A couple of quick things. If you want to leave comments as you go along, please just press the chat. That's the double speech balloon, and I will get your messages. If you have a question, there is that speech bubble with a question mark, and you can put your question there and I will receive it and respond to you. We are going to be using the Summit Writing Academy platform, and I'm going to go there right now. Just one moment. And let me find where we were. All right, I'm going to share my screen. You will see that. You can go ahead and get a Summit Writing Academy membership. It's totally free to start. And then you'll be able to do the 7-sentence story there. Otherwise, you can jot down on a piece of paper or a Google Doc or whatever you have handy and write along. This is like a workshop, so the idea is that you write along. So if I go to the dashboard, I'm just going to start the playlist for the 7-sentence story, but I'm just going to jump ahead right to our 7-sentence story. Later on, we're going to talk about using compound sentences to add some style to our writing. So that's where we're using grammar as style. So that is coming, but we're not going to talk about that quite yet. First of all, we're going to jump right into the thinking part of things, jumping right in to the outlining. Some people call it outlining. It's really where we're going to think ahead. What are we going to do before we write? It's a collection of our best ideas, and it's going to help us with our writing later. So here's our plot we're going to work with today. A main character travels back in time. Okay, in 7 sentences. And perhaps our setting, at some point in the story, the main character is in a shop. So a shop, you might interpret a shop to be like a store, or a shop could be like a woodworking shop, a metal shop, this kind of thing. So there's our ideas if you're looking for an idea. And this is the idea that we're going to use as we go through today. So here we go. We are going to get this outlined, and then we're going to get it written, and we are going to talk about compound sentences and how can we add one to our story. So let's go. We have the 7-sentence story framework. We can jot notes down in point form. But here's the beauty of this. It doesn't have to be in this order. And we have, we're going to introduce the character and setting. I don't know who's in this story yet. Somebody who's traveling back in time. So I'm just going to make notes. What point in time? Maybe, does he go back in time? Back in time. All right, so how far back? Not sure yet. Something happened, but we know that they're in a shop. And what kind of shop are we going to be at if we go back in time? What kind of a shop? When we're asking questions, this is how we are going to get all our ideas, is by, let me just close those, just by asking questions and answering those questions. Now, what's going to happen to get this story going? The more I ask myself questions, so something goes wrong in the shop. Oh, I just had an idea. And then it makes them travel back in time. Now, you can have point form, you can have like jotted notes. where you only have 1 or 2 words that will just trigger ideas. Words just come out of my fingers in phrases. That's what works for me. However you get your ideas down. Okay, so something happens. Now, what goes wrong in the shop? I'm not sure yet. But whatever it was, it causes the main character a big problem. So why is it a big problem to go back in time? Do you see I'm just asking myself questions? So why is it a problem to go back in time? Sometimes I just type, if you're good at touch typing, and if you aren't, I would highly recommend improving your typing skills so that when you're thinking, you can type. So I'm just writing that question to myself, and as I'm writing it, my brain starts getting ideas. Notice I don't even have a capital at the beginning of that question. I'm just in this outlining phase. That's totally fine. So what is the problem? So I'm going to say this is a guy. So my main character is a guy in his, he's in his mid-20s. Maybe this is in like the 1930s where there was a big depression. Okay. Main character travels back in time. So the main character is in the present day, and then something happens and he ends up in the what they call the dirty 30s. Okay, we can do that. So we have and why would that be a problem? Well, he works in a shop, so doesn't have the tools. So maybe he doesn't have the tools he has in his present day shop. Now, why is that a problem? What was he supposed to be making that he needed those tools for? He was and what would happen if he didn't have the tool to make that thing? And we should have some other person in here too. So who is he making something for? Perhaps, and it needs to be somebody significant. So maybe, well, let's keep going. How does he try to solve the problem? And then he's going to make it worse and then solves it in an unusual way. It could be that ends up designing a new tool that can do what he needs to do. So that's fine, but he uses present day technology in the past, so that's confusing. And then, how is he in a new situation? I don't usually write time travel stuff. This is challenging for me. Do you usually write time travel kinds of stories? What kinds of stories do you usually write? But it's great for making you think, great for making your brain go crazy. No, not crazy. And I'm going to call this SSS, 7-sentence story. I think the guy's name is Carl. So Carl is in his 20s. For some reason, I see him wearing like baggy brown pants and suspenders. Oh, I wonder if when he goes back in time, he goes back to his great grandfather's shop. Oh, okay. So now, now would it be his grandfather or his great grandfather? Probably his. 1930s great grandfather. Yeah, maybe. Because now, how did he time travel? So he is cleaning up his shop. Now, this is maybe a little cliche. Finds some old tools, perhaps like there's this thing called a planer that show you what it looks like. So it looks kind of like this. It's not going to show my picture. Wow, it made it big. Okay. So that's what it looks like. And you run that, that's a new one, but it's got a blade at the bottom and you run it along the wood and it smooths out the wood. Okay, so I'm going to get rid of that. So he finds some old tools. He finds this planer and he's trying it out. Smoothing out a board just for fun. And as he does, he finds himself transported to his great grandfather's shop. Okay, so now why is that a big problem? Big problem. We still don't have a significant problem unless he was we can make it he had heard things about his great grandfather and that had caused problems for his family. Maybe that could be the problem. And then he finds himself there with his great grandfather, whom he doesn't like. So now he's trying to solve this problem. He's trying to get back home. I'm just going to call it GG, great grandfather, doesn't recognize him. Because he takes after his mother's side of the family. So this is the great grandfather on his father's side. So as we're going along, I knew nothing about this before we started. And you just ask yourself questions, answer the questions, make it, it can be whatever you want. And you can see how we're going back and forth. It's not all in a straight line where you answer one question, then answer the next question, then answer the next question. So he's trying to solve the problem. He's trying to get back home. And so he is looking for a tool that will, that is similar to something in the future. And he hopes it's going to bring him back to the future. So, because the planer, which is an old tool, brought him back. So now he's looking at what would move him forward. Well, as he's doing that, he finds out that his great-grandfather is pretty innovative. So let's see here. As he's snooping around, looking for a tool. But how does that make it worse? Okay, so this is again dirty 30s, major depression. They hardly have anything to eat. So maybe his great grandfather thinks he's trying to steal from him. He doesn't recognize him. He says, "We don't have food. You need to keep moving." And he's wondering what he was looking for in the shop. You'll see this is not formatted nicely, nothing like that. Just getting ideas down. And I think the part of the solution in this story is the internal struggle. So perhaps by the end, Carl appreciates his great grandfather for the innovator that he is, and the struggles that he had during the 30s. Solving the problem in an unusual way. He ends up going back home after reconciling with his great grandfather. They end up designing a tool together. And it's just the tool he needs to finish his project. So the main character tries solving the problem again, but makes it worse. How can he make it worse? So he's there. He already got kicked out. So he's working for his great-grandfather's competitor and doing good work. Grandfather hears about it and is worried that he's going to lose work. So he tries to get him to come back. All right. So here we are, almost half an hour in, and we have an outline. I'm going to save that, and we're going to move to the writing part. Now, here's, you think, oh my goodness, we just did all that work on the outline. Where is it? Well, we're going to split screen. Now we can see our outline as we are writing our story. Okay, so here we have a really kind of lame title, but that's okay. At least it will be saved and I can find it in my writing area later. Now, so we only want 7 sentences, which is tricky because we have to get the most into the sentence without having huge sentences for all of them. Although we are going to go back and make one of them into a compound sentence when we're finished, or revise a compound sentence if we get one, put one in by accident. All right, let's see here. It's always great to start in the middle of the action. Middle of the action. So here I want now, sometimes if I'm not sure exactly what word I want to use, I put an X. And then when I'm done, I can go back and find all the X's and make the changes. But I don't want to stop, try to figure out which adjective do I want to use to describe his hands. But I could make a little note here. Maybe they're scarred, work worn, rough, large. Not sure exactly. Okay, so Carl cradled his great grandfather's planer in his large, rough, scarred hands. I might just do scarred. Before running it along the for using it to smooth Okay, and I'll get rid of that. Carl cradled his great-grandfather's planer in his scarred hands before using it to smooth the edge of the thick tabletop he was working on. Yeah, I might use something else. That's fine. We're going to keep going. So, what do we have for number 2? Something happens. He hit a. Sometimes a board has a will have a knot in it, and that will make it very hard. So maybe the planer hit a knot, and Carl found himself in a um, I need to describe the shop. And what's his last name going to be? Something familiar that he knows was his family name. As the planer hit a knot, Carl found himself sitting in a pile of sawdust, looking up at a handmade sign that read Josephson. All right, it's coming together. What will be the next? Now, something is going to be a big problem. So he realizes this is his grandfather's shop. Now, here's the thing about outlines. I didn't know that this was going to happen, that he was sitting in a pile of sawdust, that he was like looking up at the sign. It says Josephson. He's like, oh, it's my last name. Where am I? That's the beauty of you have an outline, it starts triggering ideas, and you can go and put them here. So now we need to get the fact that his grandfather doesn't like him. Okay, what are you doing in my shop? A crotchety old man peered down at him. His rheumy eyes squinted in disapproval as he shooed him out of the dusty shop. Um, I might have to get rid of this. This is actually another sentence. I'm going to cut it and put it down here for now. I might want to use it later. And then I can go there. How are we doing? I kind of got lost in figuring out that sentence. It makes it interesting when you're trying to only write 7 sentences. You really have to think about what do you want to say. Now, the main character tries solving the problem but making it worse. So now we see that his grandfather's not recognizing him. And his grandfather's trying to steal from him. Or his grandfather thinks he's trying to steal from him. Oh, yeah. Let's just say. We don't have any extra here, so unless you're ready to work, his grandfather's voice trailed off with a hint of hope. And then Carl vehemently how could we say that? Carl had heard stories of his great grandfather something. Days, and there's no way he was going to work for that family wrecker. Now, you see, most of these sentences are the same length. Ideally, we'll shorten some of them up so we have a variety. But we need to try to get the essence of the story. And the benefit of doing the 7-sentence story is you'll see if your story idea has merit. If you can't even write it in 7 sentences, how are you going to write it in 70 sentences or 700 or 7,000 sentences? So here we go. Finally, he solves the problem in an unusual way. So, how is he going to reconcile with his grandfather? So, let's read what we have so far. Carl cradled his great-grandfather's planer in his scarred hands before using it to smooth the edge of the thick tabletop he was working on. As the planer hit a knot, Carl found himself sitting in a pile of sawdust, looking up at a handmade sign that read Josephson. A crotchety old man peered down at him, his rheumy eyes squinted in disapproval as he shooed him out of the dusty shop. "We don't have any extra here, so unless you're ready to work," his grandfather's voice trailed off with a hint of hope. Carl had heard stories of his great-grandfather's wild days, and there was no way he was going to work for that family wrecker. Unless, of course, or until, or but then, let's see here. Because we need to solve the problem. Then he saw what is this special tool? And we might call the tool something. Sitting on the workbench. Then he saw the special tool sitting on the workbench. Let's see. How does that solve the problem? Maybe half finished. Then he saw the special tool sitting half finished on the workbench and knew it was time to make things right. I'm your great grandson, and with this doesn't totally end it though. So let's see here. He saw the special tool sitting half finished on the workbench and knew it was time to make things right. I'm your great grandson, and with the technology from where I come, we can finish your prototype and change our family history. I want to say, and so they did, but that's going to be another sentence. How are we doing for time? We're doing well. We're only at 45 minutes in, not even. We're doing great. I knew it was time to change their family history. Could say I got your hardworking genes. Let's finish your prototype. For your invention. It's something we still use in okay, so let's get rid of this. Not sure how to really to get back. I would have to read some time travel stuff. I don't really know too much about how time travel stuff is usually written, but we can give it a try. Okay, so you'll notice they're all about the same length, which usually makes for kind of a boring story because there's not a lot of rhythm. But let's see. Let's see how it reads. Carl cradled his great-grandfather's planer in his scarred hands before using it to smooth the edge of the thick tabletop he was working on. As the planer hit a knot, Carl found himself sitting in a pile of sawdust, looking up at a handmade sign that read Josephson. A crotchety old man peered down at him. His rheumy eyes squinted in disapproval as he shooed him out of the dusty shop. We don't have any extra here, so unless you're ready to work, his great-grandfather's voice trailed off with a hint of hope. Carl had heard stories of his great-grandfather's wild days, and there was no way he was going to work for that family wrecker. But then he saw the special tool sitting half-finished on the workbench and knew it was time to change their family history. I'm your great-grandson. Let's finish your prototype so you can get recognized for your invention. It's something we still use in 2022. Okay. Usually, when you're finished, you can leave it for a bit, and when you come back, you can make some changes. Now, if you're done with the draft, you can finish that you're done with the draft, and got it saved, closed. I'm going to go back. I'm going to go to this revision. I'm going to get rid of those in the revision. And let's see if there's any compound sentences. Now, if you have a Summit membership, then when you go over here, there'll be a video about compound sentences. So I'm just going to go a little bit here. Compound sentences. So we have two independent clauses. So here's where we're going to use grammar for style. So how can we get better flow in our story? So rather than just studying grammar because somebody says we should learn grammar, let's use grammar to make a better story, to make it more interesting, to have better writing. So we have two independent clauses, meaning two simple sentences essentially that could stand on their own. They don't need other things, but we're going to join those with a fanboy, for, and, nor, but, or, yet, or so. So let's see if we've done any of that. Have we done any of that in here? And a simple way is so we have used the word for, but it's not as a coordinating conjunction. And I can tell because here where it says, work for that family record is not an independent clause. Can get recognized for your invention. Again, not an independent clause. So let's see, and And if I put a space before and. Okay, here we have Carl had heard stories of his great-grandfather's wild days, so that's a thought that stands on its own. And I'm just going to, oops, I didn't want to do that. I want to do this. There was no way he was going to work for that family wrecker. So let's see what we need to do. But then he saw the special tool, knew it was time to change your family history. That's not an independent clause. And the last one, here, let's get rid of this. All right. So we do have, and let's see, for and nor. I'm pretty sure I didn't use the word nor. Fanboys. So but. Didn't use the word but. Or. Where do I have the word or? Somewhere here. Okay, not sure where that is. Fanboys. Yeah, no, okay, nowhere where it says or by itself. And if you just hit like Command F, that's how you get the find on a Mac. So we did for and nor, but, or, how about yet? And how about so? Okay, so here we go. We don't have any extra here, comma, so unless you're ready to work. His grandfather trailed off with, unless you're ready to work, that's not a complete clause. I'm a great grandson. Let's finish your prototype so you can get recognized for your invention. It's something we still use 2022. This would be, so let's highlight that. Let's get rid of this. And then let's go back here. I'm just going to save this. And okay, so we looked at fanboys and okay, so here we have our independent clauses. Here's our coordinating conjunctions. And here we go. We're going to put a, whoops. We're going to put a comma before the coordinating conjunction. So you can see here we have a comma before, comma before, comma before. All right, so now let's go over here. And Carl had heard stories of his great-grandfather's wild days. And there was no way he was going back. Now let's see what else we need to do. Okay, and still talking about that. So we just want to use the comma before the coordinating conjunction. So there we have it. We have two sentences that are compound sentences. We could shorten up some of these other things. It does make for long sentences, but I'm going to leave it. You could come back and revise, and we can check. This is to do some more revision. We don't use three compound sentences with different coordinating conjunctions, but we did use and so. Oh, I should put a comma before that. And this is actually a little bit more than a compound sentence, but that's okay. Because I'm your grandson is a complete thought. Let's finish your prototype is a complete thought. And you can put the date if you're going to submit it. Title, we have a title and ideas in each paragraph. Are we having words spelt correctly? Capital letters. You can use, if you have Grammarly, it's got some ideas that you can I want to use crotchety. So even when you have Grammarly, you don't have to use, so here they are. Oh, we could use and then we have another. Another compound sentence. Yeah, I'll take that. He would work for his family. So it's great to use Grammarly. It's not great to just accept everything that Grammarly accepts. He saw the special tool. I might want to keep it as special. And yes, I will put a semicolon there. But doing that, then that no longer is and I'm going to dismiss that. But then it's not a compound sentence. I'm going to get rid of that color there. All right. And there we have it. Let's maybe make it a little bit bigger so you can, oh, whoops, don't want to do that. All right. So there we have it, our 7-sentence story. If you are with Summit Writing Academy, you can flag it for feedback. When that turns green, then you know that you have submitted it to get feedback. So I'm going to go back here and we are finished for today. There is our 7-sentence story. Thank you for joining me. We're going to do another 7-sentence story next week. We'll see what the prompt will be, and I hope that you join me to write along. Until next week, keep writing.